Hello there, my name is Jonathan and this is Jonathan's Days, and normally I talk about knitting, but today we're talking about something different. We are talking about reading. If it's your first time joining here, welcome. Normally I talk about knitting and clothes I make and yarn and all those kinds of things, but I also read a lot of books. So upon request of those who are part of the community here with me, we are going to dive into a reading update for me. So if you're new, welcome. If you're a regular viewer who has said they want to hear about what books I read, here we are, we've got it. I've got my Goodreads up, ready to go with everything that I've read. I'm going to do everything I've done since January. So we're going to do January to September. So the first 3 quarters of the year, the first 9 months, and talk through all of that. So get a nice beverage. I've got a candle lighting here, which is really nice. Get a nice beverage, get your crafting if you're a crafter, and let's dive into what I have read for the last, 3 quarters of the year. I am kind of an interesting reader. This year I've read a ton, and it's not been deliberate. I've just kind of changed my lifestyle, I guess, in certain ways, and it has led to me getting through a lot more books. I've always been a reader. My father even says that growing up I always had my nose in a book, which is something I'm very grateful for, something that my family always, encouraged, which is quite nice. And I feel like it gives you a nice kind of appetite for exploration of the world. So I love that. And it also means that, I can read pretty fast. My mom is a very fast reader and I'm a very fast reader as well. So we both read a lot of books. And so how do I read so much? So I've got about 30 books to share with you today. And I read in a couple of different ways. So I read physical books sometimes. Most of the time I am reading in bed before I go to sleep. The kind of books I want to read before I go to sleep are really kind of books that take my mind away from my day-to-day life. It's something fantastical, it's something sci-fi, it's something that I don't have to think about the real world most of the time. Then I also when I commute to work, either I walk or I cycle, and I listen to an audiobook. I live in London. I'm from Ireland, but I live in London, and it means you have a lot of commute time. So generally I walk in London. You can take the tube, but I walk. So I spend a lot of time listening to audiobooks, which I started at the end of last year and I really got into this year. So a lot of these, and I will tell you which ones are audiobooks as I go, a lot of these are audiobooks. And then physical books, I will read physical books from time to time, but all the rest will be on my Kindle, and I read my Kindle in bed before I go to sleep. For the knitters, I cannot read and knit at the same time. I just don't have that skill or time. It's not maybe I could do it, but it's just not something I'm really inclined to do. When I'm knitting, I'd rather watch other podcasts or YouTube or TV shows, movies, stuff like that. That's kind of what I like to have in the background when I am knitting. So, shall we dive in? I am also just want to say that I have quite a few books. I don't believe in quantity over quality. I haven't set myself any goals for the year when it comes to reading. I kind of believe reading should be something that you really enjoy, something that you look forward to, something that excites you, and I never want to make reading a book a job. That being said, sometimes you just got to get through the book. You just need to get through the end. And I don't know what that is. That's not that compulsion to actually want to finish a book, even if you're not enjoying it that much. That comes up sometimes. And let's talk about it when we get to it. But interestingly, the first book I finished in January is also by the author of the last book I finished in September. So we'll talk about this author multiple times throughout the video. I'm also going to give you my ratings. Yeah, so out of 5 stars, just to give you the lowdown, 1 star is probably hated it so much. I probably will not award a 1 star very often, because if I hate a book that much, I'm not going to finish it. I'm not going to waste my time with it. 2 stars was, it's fine, got through it, didn't hate it, didn't love it. 3 stars for me is it's good, enjoyed, don't really think about it too much. 4 stars for me is did I have an emotional, visceral reaction to this book? So for me, that's, did it make me cry? Did it make me laugh? Angry, frustrated? Did I have a really, did this author, through the written word, manage to pull an emotion out of me. That's kind of like a 4-star book for me. And of course, like I enjoyed it and liked it as well. And then finally, the 5 stars is it pulled that emotion, all of that, as I was for 4 stars, but it stayed with me. There's books you read that like stay with you, and those are the 5-star books for me that like stick in your mind and you can never forget again. So that's a 5-star for me. And yeah, so that's the rating system. Let's start with the first book that I finished in January, which is Paladin's Faith by T. Kingfisher. This is the 4th book in the Saint of Steel series, and it's also set in the world of the White Rat, that's hard to say, book. Like that whole world. T. Kingfisher, I've read almost everything T. Kingfisher has written. I love T. Kingfisher. Everything they put out, I'm going to read. This is the 4th book in the Paladin's Faith series. It's like a fantasy world. It surrounds the paladins who basically there are gods in this world and the gods can die. So these groups of paladins, their god died. And when your god dies, you kind of like, you have no one to follow anymore, so they kind of are free agents, and they all kind of had a bit of trauma about it. All the paladins have this thing where they can go berserk. It's very interesting. It's a very cool world. It's fantasy. It's quite funny. It's romantic as well. The Paladin's Fate, the Paladin Saint of Steel series can be a bit romantic, but not like steamy, saucy. So this is the 4th book in that series. I love all of these books. I love all of the books in this world. There's the Clockwork Boys book as well, and the Sword Heart book as well. I love them all. I can't get enough. And I thought it was a trilogy, this one, but actually turns out I think there's going to be 7 books in this series. And I'm like, yes, give it to me, give it to me, give it to me. They're just a really nice, really relaxing, fun read. And I also think T. Kingfisher might be a knitter or a crafter, because one of the paladins knits and another one spins. So I have a feeling they might have something to do with that. Anyway, this book is quite good. It was a bit of a spy book. They had like a fake identity and kind of infiltrating a kind of sect, and it was actually a character from there's always a paladin, like is one of the main characters, and then a different one each book, and then it was a character from the 1st or 2nd book in the series who was a really cool character, and now that's been fleshed out a lot more. So I really, really enjoyed it. I can't recommend this. If you like a bit of fantasy, light romance, like you know where it's going. It's kind of like romantic comedy, I guess, in that way. And yeah, I love T. Kingfisher. Super diverse author, writes loads of different kinds of people, shapes, sizes, colors, genders. Like I just love it so much. So this one got 4 stars out of me. Definitely, I don't think it made me cry, but it probably made me laugh really hard. So highly recommend that. 4 stars for Paladin's Faith. Next up was The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. Read this at the beginning of the year. I read this. It was an audiobook, and I really, really enjoyed the audiobook. This is quite a popular book, and if you don't know it, it's basically about this actress who is like, a fictional actress who's super famous, and famous for like marrying many, many times, 7 husbands. And it kind of tells a story of her life, essentially. It's kind of like Elizabeth Taylor vibes, like only from the kind of view of like married a lot of people. Super popular book. It's by the same author, Taylor Jenkins Reid, who did Daisy Jones and the Six, which I haven't read. There is some vague crossover between her books, I've heard, but this was different. How would you describe it? Is it romance? What's the official category? I'm not sure what the official category it would be, but the audiobook was quite good. I enjoyed it. It got 3 stars for me. There's like twists and turns in it, so I remember a friend recommended this book to me at work, and I walked in the door like as one of the twists happened, and so I like walked in the door like slack-jawed and like immediately walked up to her and said, "Oh my god, there's been this twist." So it was super, I really enjoyed the book, but it's like not my favorite book. It didn't elicit a very strong emotion from me. So it's definitely a 3 stars from me. I also really enjoyed, but I really enjoyed the audiobook. It was quite good. The person who read the audiobook was great. So I did enjoy that. Yeah, nice ending, nice read. I read it in January when it's dark and like not super great outside, or not super like bright and sunny outside. So yeah, I recommend it. I do recommend it. It's nice, but not like world shattering and world changing. Just a nice story. I did enjoy it. Next up for me was an audiobook, and it's Strong Female Character by Fern Brady. So this is a autobiography. Fern Brady, if you don't know, is a Scottish stand-up comedian in the UK. So you'd know her from like variety show. I think like she's been on Taskmaster, if you know that show, and like a lot of the kind of panel shows and quiz shows and things like that. She is very much my sense of humor. And the most interesting thing about this book is that a lot of it deals with the fact that Fern Brady is autistic and talks about her experience as an autistic woman and how, you know, even through her, like from the time she was a child to an adult, the whole kind of, not the way the world, I guess the way the education understanding of autism kind of changed radically through that time to now. I mean, obviously there's still work to do, but it was so interesting to read the book. First of all, she's hilarious. Second of all, she was able to explain autism, and especially how autism is for women specifically, in a very like clear, understanding way, and not in a like way where you like felt sorry for her or anything like that, or just like a poor me kind of way, but it was just really personal, educational without being scientific, and very easy to digest and understand. Yeah, definitely had me laughing very loud and had some tears sometimes for me. Yeah, I really enjoyed it. She also was a stripper at one point, and it was so fascinating. It is just so interesting to read. If you have any interest in, you know, learning more about autism from somebody who has it, it's a great book to read. Audiobook is fantastic. I will say Fern Brady has a pretty strong Scottish accent. I'm Irish, so I'm quite good at understanding a Scottish accent, but you need to be prepared for that. If there ever is an autobiography and the person who wrote it does the audiobook, I do try to get the audiobook because I do quite enjoy hearing them read their words in their voice. And so yeah, even the like summary of the book is, you know, I'm diagnosed with autism 20 years after telling the doctor I had it. So she's extremely intelligent, extremely self-aware, and yeah, I really enjoyed it. 4 stars from me for sure. Highly recommend it. Strong Female Character by Fern Brady. Next up, I think I wanted something cozy, something light, something chill. Again, I read this in January, so it's like dark and grey in London, so just wanted something cozy and nice. So I read Days at the Morisaki Bookshop. This is by Satoshi Yagasawa, and it is a pretty short book, I would say. I listened to the audiobook of this as well because I liked something cozy when I go to work. I gave this 2 stars. I didn't really enjoy it simply because I hated every decision every character made, and I also don't believe that, I mean, it's not a real story, obviously it's fiction, but I'm like, I don't believe humans react the way this author has described them reacting. Do you know what I mean? I'm like, this is not a real response to the things that are happening in this book. I make it sound like it's a very intense book. It is a book about a bookshop. And I think it just didn't go where I thought it, like, it wasn't exactly what I thought it was. I thought it would be a bit more like chill and nice. And I guess it is cozy. But yeah, Only 2 stars. I liked some characters. I didn't like most of the characters and most of their decisions. It is a story about a girl who goes through a breakup and goes in with her uncle at his bookshop. Does she go through a breakup or does she get fired? Oh yeah. She goes through a breakup. Boyfriend reveals she's marrying someone else. She reluctantly accepts her eccentric uncle's offer to live rent-free in a tiny room above the shop. So yes, she goes through a breakup. She goes to live above the shop. So yeah, it's interesting. I only gave it 2 stars, and looking here at Goodreads, it's only got 3.65. So I think the consensus is a bit split on it. Now, the strange thing is that there's another one, a second one called Even More Days at the Morisaki Bookshop, and I have the audiobook on my to listen to read list. So when I want something cozy, I probably will read the book. So I guess I didn't hate it that much, but only 2 stars for me. It's one of those things like it's a book about books, but it's about people. I don't know. It's a book about books, a book about a bookshop, but it's actually not about any of those things. It's about people making poor decisions with their lives. So yeah, I guess I didn't really like that much. 2 stars for me for that. Next up is, I'll probably talk about them kind of together. It's 2 books by T. Kingfisher. I believe these are young adult. Let me double check. Yes, they are young adult. So the first one I read the actual physical book of this, on my Kindle. Wow, genre is middle grade. So that's how young, so I guess it's a kid's book, but I don't care. So this is young adult fiction. T. Kingfisher, I'm not sure about pronouns. We'll just use they. These are obviously for young adults, and there's Minor Mage, which is the one I read, followed by Illuminations. There's also Wizard's Guide to Defensive Baking, which, did I read that last year? Or is it coming up here? I read that last year. Yeah, these 3 books, I really love them. T. Kingfisher is really good at like building a world very quickly when it comes to like magic. Like it's not too deep. Like the magic systems that you encounter aren't too deep or intense. And yeah, they just get set up really quickly, and the characters are always really strong and fun and interesting. So first one, Minor Mage. I mean, I gave both of these 4 stars. I really, really enjoyed these books. Minor Mage is about exactly what it says. It's about the son of a woman. His mother is like a powerful warrior or mage, if I remember correctly. And they have a familiar, which is an armadillo, who talks to them. And basically they go on like a quest together. And it's really good. I enjoyed this book so much. He only knew 3 spells. One of them was to control his allergy to armadillo dander. His attempts to summon elementals resulted in nosebleeds, and there is nothing more embarrassing than having your elemental leave the circle to get you a tissue, pat you comfortably, and then disappear in a puff of magic. His armadillo had about wet himself laughing. He was a very minor mage. Unfortunately, he was all they had. So yes, they're waiting for, the people in his village are waiting for the rains, so he has to go on a quest to get the rains for their crops, and his mother is away. It's a novella, it's a short book, 176 pages. Yeah, super nice book. If you just want to read, like, the days of the Morisaki Bookshop, I wanted something cozy and nice and fun, and Minor Mage gave me that. So Minor Mage is great. Super nice, fun, a little bit scary. There are some scary minutes and moments in there. T. Kingfisher does do horror. This isn't a horror, but she does scary very, very well. So super enjoyed that one. Illuminations is a great one. This one is set, I don't know if it's actually set in Italy or an Italy style place, and it's about this family of painters, and they do magical illuminations, like magical paintings, essentially. So for example, if you were a baker, they would paint a magical illumination that will stop mice and rats from coming to your bakery. And this is about one of the daughters in this family, and their studio is like famous for doing their illuminations, but they've come through hard times. And she discovers a magical box with a painted crow that comes to life, and then releases a Scarling, a monster who's determined to destroy all of the illuminations and take their power. It's so good. I really enjoyed this one as well. Really fun, relaxing read. Great for like younger people in your life, or if you just want something fun and relaxing for you. Highly recommend Illuminations and Minor Mage and A Wizard's Guide to Defensive Baking. All three of those books are fantastic. Really, really enjoyed them. So I read both the actual physical book of those. Then in the audiobook world, I read The Thursday Murder Club by Richard Osman. This is like super popular book series, especially in the UK. Richard Osman is also a comedian, writer, television writer, TV personality in the UK. And he wrote The Thursday Murder Club, which is his first book. And basically the Thursday Murder Club are 4 senior citizens who live in a retirement village and solve murders. One of them is an ex-spy, one of them is ex-nurse, one of them is an what do they call them? Like strike. When people go on strike, he helps lead strikes and workers things. And then one of them is a psychologist, I believe. And so they're all senior citizens, all retired, essentially, and they solve like cold cases and murders. And I have read all 4 of these books. I'll talk about them as they come up. Thursday Murder Club, the first one, I gave 4 stars. I enjoyed them so much. The audiobooks are read, I can't think of who they're read by, but they're 2 different actresses. The first 2 by one actress and the next 2 by a different actress, and they're fantastic. So great to listen to. So if you like audiobooks, I highly recommend the audiobooks of these. I love a murder mystery. I love solving a murder. I just find them really enjoying. Well, when they're done well, they're really compelling and really, really fun. And the Thursday Murder Club is fantastic. Really, really good. And then there's a whole cast of supporting characters, and it's going to be a movie. I think it's going to be a Netflix movie, and they've released the cast for it. So it's very exciting because I think it's a great book. It's a great story, and I highly recommend if you like a murder mystery. All the characters are fantastic, and things happen sometimes. It's perilous at times, good things, bad things, but you always know that the main characters are going to be okay and that they will overcome it. So it's kind of the best of that, and it has made me think about old age, people getting older, retiring, and all that kind of jazz. And so it's made me think about that in a new way, which is quite nice. Then straight after that, the next book that I finished was the second book in the Thursday Murder Club series, which was The Man Who Died Twice. I gave this 5 stars. This is probably my favorite book of the Thursday Murder Club series. This book has stayed with me ever since I read it. I think about it pretty regularly. I think about the stories it told and the meaning of the title. I won't spoil at all, but when you understand the meaning of The Man Who Died Twice, it almost brings me to tears when I think about it. It was so fantastic. This was an audiobook, so I walked to work listening to this audiobook, and I was in tears on the street listening to this because it was so beautiful, so touching. I love the characters. I love, how they react to things, how funny they are, how caring they are, how much they love each other, how much they're there for each other, and how unlikely a group of friends that they are. So it's just really nice, really feel good, fun, mystery. I absolutely love it. I cannot recommend it enough. If you like murder mysteries and those kind of things and you haven't, Thursday Murder Club, the entire series, is fantastic. Okay, next one is a big one. Oh my God, are you on Book Talk? Are you on the internet reading about books? Yes. I read The House of Flame and Shadow, which was the 3rd Crescent City book by Sarah J. Maas. This is the same author who does A Court of Thorns and Roses. I won't dwell on this too much. I feel like most people didn't enjoy the final book in this series. It had a lot of, it was a very exciting end to the second book in the series, and we were all waiting to see what was going to happen, and it was a bit of a letdown. I do think that I enjoy the Crescent City series the most of Sarah J. Maas's series. I've only read Court of Thorns and Roses. I have not read Throne of Glass, but I will eventually. But I know it's like 7 or 8 books, so I'm kind of like not ready to take that on just yet. But House of Crescent City, I do love a lot. Court of Thorns and Roses, good. Like it. I'll read it when she releases it, but it's not my favorite series of books. But I do, I was talking about the book I read at night before I go to bed, and this book is fantasy, out of this world. I don't have to think about anything in my real life because I'm thinking about like these fairies running around being stupid. So, that's it for me. So far, let's see. So far, everyone I've spoken about is a good writer. I do not think that Sarah J. Maas is a very good writer. She is what she writes is enjoyable, but her prose is poor. And this is someone who studied English at university, so I've read it all, or, read it in a kind of more methodical, almost scientific way of reading. But I do take umbrage and issue with the way she writes sometimes. She uses the term padded way too often. She padded across the floor, he padded across the floor. She writes this so often, it really like makes my eye twitch. The other thing is she said the men generally in the book snarl. So, she's like, whatever, snarled, he said, the dog is over there, he snarled. And I'm like, people don't really snarl words, or you know what I mean? Like you don't snarl a sentence that often. So I don't know why she uses it as a descriptive way for someone who speaks. Stephen King said that you should never really use a descriptive word to describe how someone is speaking. What they say should infer it enough. And I kind of agree with that. So, to each their own. There's just certain words she says and phrases she uses that are weak phrases. Like they show a lack of imagination when it comes to descriptions, and she uses them too often. So those things bother me sometimes. But do I enjoy them? Absolutely. 4 stars. Does she get emotions out of me? Yes, I have cried at every single one of the Crescent City books. Like she gets emotion out of me. So even though I think she's a poor writer, do I love this series of books? Yeah, I absolutely do. And I'm going to read everything she writes. So, that's the thing. Just because it's not, I love comic book movies and like romantic comedies. Like just because they're not, I don't know how you describe it. Like if you reviewed it or you studied or academically, you think like academically this is not strong. It doesn't mean you don't enjoy it and don't think it's great. So yes, 4 stars. I do really enjoy Sarah J. Maas's books. Don't enjoy her prose, but I enjoy her books. So yeah, 4 stars. If you like some fantasy, bit of steam, fun, like the world is amazing and the kind of magic she creates. There's a bit of Deus Ex Machina going on there, if you know what I mean. But otherwise, yeah, it's good. It's good. I like it, and I'll continue to read it. So yes, that is House of Flame and Shadow, which was the 3rd book in the Crescent City series. I hope there's more. I'm going to read it regardless. Next up, we have How to Kill Your Family. This is by Bella Mackie. This, I listened to the audiobook, and this is going to get 2 stars for me. I got through it. It was fine. It didn't elicit any emotion from me. No character is likable. I didn't root for anyone. I didn't care about anyone. The premise is it's a like revenge book. So it's about this girl whose mother like was dating this guy and she got pregnant with her. And then he was like rich and famous. And so he like, when she got pregnant, he like dropped her, pretending he didn't know her, blah, 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 blah. And then her mother dies. And so she wants to take revenge on this guy, her father. And so she does that by killing his entire family and then the plan is to kill him. So it's a revenge book. It's like a modern book. It's set like in London. It was good, I guess. It's going to be a movie with Anya Taylor-Joy now, so you're all going to hear about it soon. I liked the book. It was fine. 2 stars. The writing was okay. Sorry, I didn't love it if you loved it. Next up, I finished Crescent City. I was like, I want something similar. I want something like the same vibe. So we've got Fourth Wing by Rebecca Yarros. And this was highly recommended by a friend of mine. I gave this 3 stars. I don't know if it's 3 stars. I guess. I liked Fourth Wing. I did like it. I did enjoy it. I enjoyed it more than How to Kill Your Family, that's for sure. So yeah, Fourth Wing. It was good, I guess. Not sure about the world she has created yet, if it's strong enough, if it makes sense. Like, I don't know. It's just, the characters are so set in their world and their reality, and it's clear that there's more going on that they're not at all inquisitive about. And yeah, it's fine. The spicy stuff isn't that spicy. The main character, like the main love interest, is exact same as all these other books. He's not interesting or different at all. I guess I liked that the main character is not, you know, I mean, she is chosen one vibes, but she's not, she gets like, she's weak and gets the crap beat out. She gets the crap beaten into her pretty regularly. So much so and so often that I just felt like it was almost like graphic torture. Like, I was like, this is not advancing the plot. It is not endearing me to anyone. She makes completely poor choices. Like, yeah. Oh, and like the synopsis, if you haven't read it, it's just like a dragon fantasy book where you become a dragon. So basically they go to dragon school to become dragon riders, and they need that to defend the land. But they people like die a lot in this dragon school becoming dragon riders, and it's like, it doesn't make sense because the dragon riders are the most important line of defense they have, and yet anyone who could potentially become a dragon rider is completely disposable. So it doesn't make sense to me. Like, I just don't understand. Like, no society should be built on something like that. Like, it just doesn't make sense. Like, yeah, I'm always like, it doesn't make sense to me. And that's why I'm like, the larger world is interesting to me, because I'm kind of like, okay, they behave like this for a certain reason because of something else going on, but we don't know what it is. So yeah, 3 stars. I guess I enjoyed it for what it was. And I do like the kind of like school year, even though they're not children. I think they're like in their late teens, early 20s. So they're not children. It's more like a dragon riding university. But yeah, I mean, I'm more interested in the world, and there's not much time spent on the world. So yeah, 3 stars. If you like it, you like it. We'll talk about the second one when I get to it. Next up was The Bullet That Missed, which is the 3rd book in the Thursday Murder Club, which I listened to the audiobook again. They changed audiobook narrator for the 3rd book, if you like the audiobook world. Bullet That Missed, I gave this 3 stars. It probably wasn't my favorite of the... Oh yeah, so this is only 3 stars. So for Thursday Murder Club, we've got a 4-star, a 5-star, and now a 3-star. I think this is the weakest of the 4 books from the Thursday Murder Club. But again, it's like, if you have 4 pizzas in front of you, you could probably, from different places, you'll definitely pick your favorite pizza, but it's all pizza, so it's all good. You know what I mean? So yes, it's also one of those things where these books take place quite soon after each other. So yeah, and I really like the world Richard Osman writes, and I also really like how characters that seem like passing characters kind of become part of the group. Not necessarily the core club, but they become part of like the world. And I like the way that villains kind of become like allies. So I really enjoyed that aspect of it. So that was The Bullet That Missed, and that's the 3rd Thursday Murder Club, which I did really enjoy. it probably should be 4 stars because they're all great. But compared to the other ones, it's 3 stars. So probably 4 stars. Really enjoy it. Thursday Murder Club, number 3 by Richard Osman. Then my next audiobook, Fourth Wing took me a while to read, didn't it? Anyway, my next audiobook was Everything I Know About Love by Dolly Alderton, which is a series of essays. I hated this book. This is a series of essays. They're autobiographical. This person, I don't like it. I don't like the book. There was parts of it I identified because I believe she's about the same age as me. So there was things talking about like going on MSN Messenger as a teenager that I was like, I remember doing that. I remember being that young. But how it's Everything I Know About Love. And I'm like, she doesn't know much. She's not someone I would take advice from. She's someone who makes poor decisions. I just didn't enjoy reading somebody make constantly poor decisions without taking the right lessons from it. I also found it very strange that she didn't acknowledge her own privilege at all throughout the book. And this person is extremely privileged in my opinion, and that was never acknowledged. So this is 1 star, not for me. Yeah, I did do the whole thing, but extremely privileged, and don't take any lessons from this person, in my opinion, on that one. So yes, Everything I Know About Love, that by Dolly Alderton. The less we say, the better. Next up is probably one of my favorite books of the year. This is Legends and Lattes by Travis Baldree, and I did the audiobook of this one, and Travis Baldree does the narration as well because he's also a voice actor, I do believe. And oh my god, I love this book. It was so nice. So I obviously love fantasy. I like fantasy TV shows. I like fantasy books. And this is basic. And I love this. There's a lot of this happening right now where in the like fantasy world, there's all these books, TV shows, stuff where they talk about like the other things going on. So, you know, one of my favorite TV shows of the year is called Frieren, and it's about like an elf who like killed the bad guy who lives a century later, and it's like what happens 100 years after they kill the bad guy, you know, these kind of ways of thinking about a fantasy world in a different way. And this book is about an orc who's part of a crew that, you know, go on adventures and dungeon crawl and all that adventures, but then this orc decides to open a coffee shop. So it's basically about a orc opening a coffee shop in a fantasy town. And it's like, it's definitely cozy vibes, but it's like still a great story. So it's kind of like, if you enjoy fantasy, like you have to enjoy this. I loved it so much. It's 4 stars for me. 4 stars for me because I really enjoyed it. Like it didn't elicit like emotion from me, but I did really, really enjoy it. And the audiobook is fantastic and I highly recommend it. So that is Legends and Lattes, and I love lattes. I love coffee. I love coffee culture. So coffee culture, fantasy world, amazing world building, fantastic characters, memorable voice acting. So great. Treat yourself to Legends and Lattes. I really, really enjoyed it. That was 4 stars. Then the next one was the final book the most recent book in the Thursday Murder Club series by Richard Osman, which was The Last Devil to Die. Loved this one. This is 4 stars. Really, really back kind of at it. Yeah, I love these characters. This one was like another like emotional, you know, obviously there's an overarching mystery always with these books, but this had like a really emotional, sad twinge to it, which was really beautiful. And yeah, I loved the 4th Thursday Murder Club book. I really, really, really liked it. So again, murder mystery, senior citizens solving murder. If you like your Miss Marple, if you like your Poirot, this is right up your alley. Loved it. Then right after that, there was the Legends and Lattes prequel book. So this is, even here it says it's 0, and there's Legends and Lattes 1. This is Legends and Lattes 0, called Bookshops and Bone Dust, which is a prequel. And basically the orc we know from the Legends and Lattes series, this is like before, and she basically gets injured and has to stay in this like seaside town where there's like a dilapidated bookshop. and she helps restore the bookshop. And again, super nice, cozy vibes. 3 stars. I think this is 4 stars. Oh, well, again, this is 3 stars for me because I didn't enjoy it as much as the first one, but it's still fantastic. So Bookshops and Bone Dust, really, really great. Again, I did the audiobook, narrated by Travis Baldree. So great. How long is this one? I think it's even longer than the first one. But yes, really, really enjoyed that one as well. I'm hopeful that there's another one coming because I would like to see what happens after Legends and Lattes. But it's also like, we've done coffee shops, we've done bookshops. Like, what's the other cozy occupation vibe in this world that he can tackle? So not sure where he's going to go, but I do hope there's more because I really, really did enjoy Bookshops and Bone Dust by Travis Baldree. Then, next one is The Familiar by Leigh Bardugo. I've read everything Leigh Bardugo has read. I've read all the Grishaverse books, and I absolutely love the Ninth House books. They're really, really good. I love the way she writes. I think she's just fantastic and really enjoyable to read. The Familiar is a strange one. It's set in, I want to get the town right, Madrid. It's set in Madrid in the past, and basically it's about a time where it's like a fantasy. It's obviously historical fiction in a way. I would say historical fiction fantasy, I would say. So like magic is real in this world, but it's kind of like under the guise of either like demonic or like from the heavens. So basically this girl, and it's neither of those things, but this girl gets involved in a competition for the king to become like the king's magician, essentially, and kind of perform miracles. When it started, I was like not feeling it at all. But then I really got into it. It took a little bit to take off, but I really, really got into it. I was nervous about the kind of like historical aspect of it because I do enjoy the fantasy worlds she has created. And I also enjoy like the more modern fantasy horror that is Ninth House. So I was quite skeptical of this, but I should have trusted her because it was really, really good. The ending was fine. Probably like not the crescendo I thought it would be, but I was still like happy with it. And so, yeah, I think if you start reading it and you're not feeling it, try and stick with it because it really, really did get going, got more exciting probably after the first third. And she's fantastic. Like her characters are always fantastic. She does like a bit of horror and spookiness quite well. So I really did enjoy this. This got 4 stars from me. So Leigh Bardugo, I do trust Leigh Bardugo and enjoy her writing. So yeah, I definitely recommend that. And I did the physical book of this as well. Next up was The Spear Cuts Through Water by Simon Jimenez, I would say. And this one, I did the audiobook of this, and that was a mistake. I do not recommend listening to the audiobook of this book. And I say this because every character you encounter almost has an internal monologue like moment, whether it's to do with what's happening or not. So the main characters will come along, they will encounter a woman on the side of the road, and the woman on the side of the road has a thought, and that thought is written. When you're listening to an audiobook, it's so difficult to track who is speaking, who is thinking, who is doing, because of these kind of like asides in someone's mind. And I found it so difficult to get through that, to understand it. It was just really tough to follow. Now, it's not a criticism of the person reading the audiobook, it's just kind of the format of the book itself. So yes, I found that extremely difficult from the audiobook point of view. It is long, it's 525 pages, so it's not short, so it was quite long. I don't know how to describe it. It is like a fantasy, historical fantasy, kind of grounded in a little bit of reality. There is a play within a play kind of vibes if you studied your, Shakespeare kind of thing. So it's probably the most experimental, surreal book that I read all year, and I did think it was good. It was good, very well written, very different, something new, something strange. I just kind of wish I'd read the physical book rather than the audiobook. Tough one to recommend, because it's kind of weird, but it is like an epic fantasy. I don't know. It's a tough one for me to talk about. Yeah. Try it. Give it a go. It is good. It is quality, I would say. It is great quality. I'm not sure if it was for me necessarily. Tough one to get through from an audiobook point of view, but yeah, hard to recommend. But I 3 stars. I liked it. It did not elicit emotion from me. It did not stay with me. So yes, that's where I'm at with that. Next up is Stone Blind by Natalie Haynes. This is one of those books that is like a trend in prose and literacy. I think it almost feels like it kicked off with the Song of Achilles, and this is kind of like a retelling of Greek and Roman myths. This one specifically is about Medusa and kind of like a new look at like a retelling of it. So it talks about Medusa and the Gorgons and like a new look at her life and what it was and what the reality was, and more of a feminist look at it. I am currently reading, which I won't really talk about too much in this, I'm currently reading The Odyssey by Stephen Fry. So Stephen Fry has done 4 books retelling Greek myths, and my overall feeling is that women in particular are not painted in a good light at any point throughout Greek and Roman myths. They are not treated well, and Medusa is just another one of those. And I don't know if I wanted this book to be a retelling that changed the accepted reality of the Medusa, but it wasn't. You know what I mean? I think it like shone a light on how terrible a story is and how terrible women are treated in Greek and Roman myths. I think I expected or wanted it to be like, I don't know, let's change the past, let's reframe this, like what if something else happened, or what if something was different? I feel like this was just a retelling to kind of draw attention to how awful Medusa is treated in Greek and Roman myths rather than a change. So yeah, I don't know. It got 3 stars for me. I did enjoy the read, but yeah, not sure about it. To be honest though, like if you've read Circe, I much preferred that when it comes to retellings. Really enjoyed that book. So yes. Next audiobook is The Library of the Unwritten. This is the first in the Hell's Library series. This is about a library in hell. Sorry team, my card was full. So The Library of the Unwritten is a library in hell where all the unwritten stories go as books. And it tells the story of the librarian who manages this library, and it's kind of like, it's in hell, but it's like not of hell or not kind of ruled by hell. So they're kind of like independent, they're like Switzerland, they're kind of neutral when it comes to the battle between heaven and hell. And one of the characters from one of these unwritten books kind of gets into the real world and like runs amok a bit. And yeah, it's a really cool premise. It's like a book about books and fantasy and heaven and hell and like demons and angels and stuff like that. I find kind of the battle between heaven and hell like almost reductive. Like I don't like, it just doesn't make sense to me that there is a battle between heaven and hell. Like it just, yeah, anyway, it's neither here nor there. So I never, I don't kind of like, at the end there is like, is there a malevolent, non-malevolent, benevolent force? Like who wins and at what end and who gave the power to who? So like in my mind, whenever these kind of stories come, I'm a bit like, about them. But I loved the characters. The characters are really good. The audiobook was really, really good, really enjoyable. Like I enjoyed the entire story. Certain things weren't resolved in the way I kind of thought they would be or wanted to be. They were kind of a bit like messy, but the premise is fantastic. And the fact that they're kind of like, there's all different versions of hell in different belief systems and they all exist. So it is a series and I didn't immediately jump in. Like I really enjoyed this. This was 3 stars for me, but it wasn't so enjoyable that I immediately like wanted to read the next book. I'm more kind of like waiting. I'm like, oh yeah, I'll do the next book in the series. So I'm not rushing to read the next in the series, but I did really enjoy it. So yeah, that's the Library of the Unwritten. If you like a bit of heaven and hell, angels and demons, modern reality, fantasy, book about book, it was quite good. And yeah, the audiobook was good. And it's by AJ Hackwith, is the Library of the Unwritten. Then next was another audiobook. This is in the like cozy section, and this was Before the Coffee Gets Cold. This is by Toshikazu Kawaguchi. This is like a really like well-known kind of cozy book that lots of people have read and enjoyed. I listened to the audiobook, which was good. It's a really interesting premise, and basically there's a coffee shop in Japan and you can go back in time if you get a coffee at this coffee shop, and there are like rules about what you can and can't do when you go back in time. So it's a very interesting like time travel book. If you like any of stories to do with time travel, it really kind of, what I loved about it was how it flipped that trope of time travel on its head and changed how the mechanic of time travel is used, because it's used so often in like fantasy and books and stuff like that. So I really, really enjoyed how the author kind of changed that. And then it's almost like vignettes, like there's 4 or 5 different kind of vignettes of, you know, the plot moves along, like there isn't like an overarching plot, but the characters kind of, you know, maintain along, and it's kind of like vignettes of different people and how they use the power of going back in time. And the title book, Before the Coffee Gets Cold, you only have until the coffee gets cold to spend in the past. It was fine. It did not elicit the emotion from me that I think the author would expect, or from a lot of people, because I really saw what was happening coming. So it wasn't a shock to me when certain things happened. And yeah, it's interesting because I think there's like 3 or 4 more in this series, and I'm not in any rush to read them at all. The irony is, like the Murasaki Bookshop book, I will probably read the next book in the series, even though I liked it less than this. But I do think this book has very good writing, very good storytelling. Characters were strong, but yeah, it is 3 stars. Good, not great for me. Like, good for someone, not great for me. Does that make sense? So yeah, that was Before the Coffee Gets Cold, and I did the audiobook of that. Now, in the left turn, something much different. The next book I read was The Age of Magical Overthinking, Notes on Modern Irrationality. So this book I know because I listened to a podcast called Cultish about like modern cults, which is not actual cults. It's like Peloton and Spin Cycle, or not Spin Cycle, that's a cult. Hey, man, it is. What do they call? Soul Cycle, like Apple, Facebook, Swifties, like all these kind of modern cults that aren't really cults but sound like a cult. And basically, this book is by Amanda Montreal, and she's interested in like linguistics and linguistic insights and how we think about the world. And, you know, she analyzes things like fan culture, internet culture, wellness, like all these kinds of things. Halo effect, sunk cost fallacy, magical thinking, like all these kinds of things, which I think are so relevant for my generation, like millennials and Gen Z, and how we think of the world and how we interact with the world when we're like chronically online, he says, filming his YouTube video. But yes, I did the audiobook of this, which is read by Amanda Montreal, and I listen to her podcast, so I know I enjoy her voice and enjoy how she reads. And yeah, super great. Really made me think about, speaking of magical overthinking, it really made me think about things in a different way. And so much so that I would love to get like a physical copy of it so I could highlight and make notes as I went through it. But yeah, really, really enjoyed that. Something different for me. Next up was Queen Bee. This is this is by Juno Dawson, and this is in the Her Majesty's Royal Coven series. This is a prequel to the Her Majesty's Royal, well, it's kind of a prequel because it's about Anne Boleyn, Queen Anne Boleyn, and about her being a witch. So in this fantasy world, there's like witches and witchcraft, and there are 2 books in the Her Majesty's Royal Coven series already, which are kind of set in the modern world, and a Coven of Witches, Her Majesty's Royal Coven in the modern world. But this book obviously takes place during Anne Boleyn's life and Anne Boleyn's Coven of Witches. It's only a novella, so it's pretty short, 171 pages, but I love this. I read the physical book of this. I love the Her Majesty's Royal Coven series. So I've read all of them. So the first 2 books. The ending of the second book made me throw my Kindle across the room, not because I was angry or anything, just because it ended like so well and on such a cliffhanger that I'm like, give me the book. I was tempted because Juno Dawson was having like a reading, and I was tempted to go just so I could shake her and be like, just release it, I need to know what happens. But this was a really, really great book in the meantime to read. One of those books that goes like backwards and forwards in time. And I thought it would be like very like Anne Boleyn trying to like retell history. And I guess it does in a way, it frames it through the lens of witchcraft. But it wasn't what I expected in a very good way. So I really, really enjoyed it. If you like some, again, a lot of historical magical fiction for me, I really, really enjoyed that. So yeah, that was Queen Bee. I gave it 4 stars. Yeah, I really, really enjoyed that. Enjoy the whole series, so would recommend that. Next audiobook for me was called The Fellowship of Puzzle Makers by Samuel Burr. I found this just flicking around on like, oh, sorry, this is my iPad Lite. Flicking around on the like audiobook store, and I came across this, and basically it is a fiction book about this, basically it's called The Fellowship of Puzzle Makers, and they're a bunch of friends who all love making puzzles, and they create this Fellowship of Puzzle Makers. They all live in a big house together, and they make different puzzles, and they sell puzzles, and that's their whole lifestyle. And one day a child is left on the doorstep of the Fellowship, and they take in the child, and he grows up in the Puzzle Makers world. And so the leader, who's like his adopted mother, passes away, and when she passes away, she leaves a like scavenger hunt of puzzles for the boy to, well, he's a grown man now, to explore and solve his, and basically the puzzle will solve his like life story and who his real family are and who his real parents are and stuff like that. So it's split into 2. So it's the woman who's the like founder, the creator, and she's a crossword puzzle maker, and then the boy, the man, him. So it's her in the past, like 60s, no, probably 70s, 80s, I think. And then the boy in like the modern time, and it goes back and forth between them, and he's like solving the riddles of his life, and she's telling the story of how she created the Fellowship. So if you like puzzles, you like crosswords and stuff like that, it's really, really nice. I listened to the audiobook, which is really, really good. Russell Tovey was one of the narrators, who I know and is great. So I really enjoyed the audiobook from that regard, but the actual puzzles are in the book. So if you have the physical book, you can like solve the crosswords as you go along with the book, which is really, really cute, like really cool idea to do that. So I didn't get to enjoy that aspect of it because I listened to the audiobook. But the actual story itself was really cute, really nice. Yeah, really fun. I really, really enjoyed it. I loved the characters and the world they created. Ending, but don't know if they stuck the landing necessarily, but it is tied up quite nicely. And so yeah, I really, really enjoyed that. Fellowship of Puzzle Makers. That got 3 stars out of me, for sure. Next was audiobook We Could Be So Good. This is by Cat Sebastian. We're in the home stretch, we're nearly there. By Cat Sebastian. And this, I listened to the audiobook. I hated the narrator of this book. This is set in, let's see if I can quickly pop up what time, late 1950s, and it is about two men who work at a newspaper in the 1950s. One of them is the son of the owner of the paper, and the other is a writer. So it's set in New York in 1950s. It's a romance, obviously a gay romance. I hated the narrator. The narrator, the voice they put on for everyone sounded like a caricature of someone doing a 1950s advertisement voice. You know, it's like, oh, here I go and I talk like this. And it was just ridiculous. I was like, first of all, I don't think people actually spoke like that all the time at that time. And the fact that it was constant throughout the book, it really impacted my enjoyment of the book. But that being said, I didn't really enjoy the book either itself. It's interesting. Sometimes I find gay men written by women difficult to identify with, because sometimes it's so different from my reality and my world as a gay man and how I would react and how other gay men I know would react. So when I read these books, I mean, look, everybody's different. Everyone could be in a different way, but sometimes I read these books written by women of queer male relationships, and I'm like, in no relationship I've ever seen, heard in my real life would any gay man react the way these men are. So that was definitely something for me with this book. It was too long. Yeah, didn't love it. Not for me. And narrator wasn't good. So it was only 2 stars. It wasn't 1 star, 2 stars. But if you like a chill romance, then fine, but not for me. Sorry. That's We Could Be So Good was not so good for me. Next up was the physical book, which I read. It's called The Blackbird Oracle. This is by Deborah Harkness. This is from the world of A Discovery of Witches, the All Souls series. So I think there's 3 books in the first trilogy. And then there's like a standalone book. And then this is, I believe, the start of a new trilogy, or at least a new duology of books. And I thought that it was over, but this is continuing the story. And it's one of those ones where I was like, where is she going to go from here? But All Souls number 5, Diana Bishop, I liked this a lot. And this is definitely more witches, less vampires. So if you like the witches aspect of it, there's a lot more of that. Tons more, actually. I really enjoy that. Characters I don't like that much, aren't featured as much. So I think I'm pretty happy. I was like, oh yes, we don't have to do that. There are certain things similar to Sarah J. Maas where I'm kind of like, nobody talks like this ever. Like, why do you keep speaking like this? It's just not real. And that continues on in this book. But if you like witches, it's like Salem. I feel like it's a vibe now. Like, witchy stuff is very much going on in the zeitgeist at the moment. So if you like that, then I think you would enjoy this. You 1,000,000% have to have read at least the first 3 books to get what's going on, and you probably do have to read the 4th. So if you like the series, or if you want to take on the whole series of the All Souls trilogy or All Souls books, they are pretty good. Heavy on the vampires sometimes, but I like that we're getting away from the vampires a bit. Do feel sometimes there is a bit much going on in the world. Like the author can't like rein in all that they've done sometimes. Like they go a bit too big in the world of magic. But I really like the main characters. There's lots of characters I like, and the few that I don't like are being featured less. So I really enjoyed this. you know, any book where I can't wait to pop into bed at night and open up my Kindle and just read for an hour is a good book in my eye. So it is 3 stars because, yeah, it didn't elicit an emotional reaction from me, but it is pretty great, pretty great. Next is a audiobook. This one, again, I was just flicking around, pretty short. This is a murder mystery. This is called Shady Hollow by Juno Black. And this is a cozy mystery where all the characters are animals. There is and you know, like they're kind of like dressed in clothes, you know, like in living in a town. So, you know, it's a normal world, but they're all animals, if that makes sense. Birds and foxes and bears and stuff like that. I listened to the audiobook of this, and I did this on holiday because I wanted something cozy, and it's really sweet, really cute, really cozy, really fun. I think there's like 5 of these books or something. Yeah, there's 5 of these books plus 2 short stories. Oh, and there's a Halloween one. Maybe I'll try and get that one done. Anyway, yeah, so I liked it. It's not amazing. It's not changing the world, but if you just want a really cute, chill story, a little bit of a murder mystery, then yeah, it's pretty good. So yeah, I think it's about the main character is a reporter at the newspaper in this little town, forest town called Shady Hollow, and there's a murder mystery. I don't think it is a good mystery. Like the killer in the end that you find out is like a bit stupid, but it's a really enjoyable journey to get to that, if that makes sense. So I did really like it, and I will kind of follow the series. Like when I want to have something cozy and fun, then I'm going to keep following the series. So if that's a recommendation, it is. But yeah, if you like something cute and cozy, then that's quite nice. I think you can kind of tell my whole thing is like I do like an intense book, and then I always like, oh, I need something chill and cozy that I don't have to focus too much, and then I'll do something chill and cozy. So that's what Shady Hollow was for me, and that's by Juno Black, which I liked. I'm gonna keep listening to the series, but I'm not in a rush to do it either. Then next is We Solve Murders. This is by Richard Osman. This is another like kind of murder mystery, I guess I would say. This is by Richard Osman, who also did the Thursday Murder Club series, but this is completely separate. So brand new characters. I mean, it's still just set in the modern world, but it is brand new characters. And basically it is about a retired policeman and his daughter-in-law. His daughter-in-law is a bodyguard, and basically someone is trying to kill the daughter-in-law, and the daughter-in-law has a really close relationship with her father-in-law, who's the retired policeman, and they help each other like solve the mystery. Richard Osman's characters are brilliant, so funny, great emotions, great solve. The solve was a bit, but by default, the killer or the person who's trying to kill them is, his whole thing is that they're an unknown being. So it makes sense that they kind of came out of nowhere. But the world, the jokes, the humor, the characters are just 10 out of 10. So yeah, Richard Osman just is so great and such a joy to read. I also did the audiobook on this. So yeah, highly recommend. 4 stars out of me, made me laugh out loud a lot. So yeah, really enjoyed that, and I hope he continues to write more of the We Solve Murder series because I love the characters. Crossover, probably not, but really enjoyed. And then finally, oh my god, if you've been here this long, I hope you like my last book that I read. So the last book I read was by T. Kingfisher. This is A Sorceress Comes to Call. T. Kingfisher also does amazing retellings of fairy tales and fairies and, you know, fiction. So this is a dark retelling of the Brother Grimm's Goose Girl. Rife with secrets, murder, and forbidden magic, Cordelia knows her mother is unusual. So it tells the story of this girl whose mother is a sorceress, and this sorceress, she controls her daughter. She can take over her daughter, and set in this fantasy world, and the her mother, the sorceress, is like needs to like marry someone new for money, and basically they go to this other stately home, and while the mother is trying to like seduce the lord of the house to try and get him to marry her, but the sister of the lord is on to the sorceress and is trying to figure out. So it's like different POVs. So you've got the daughter, and then you've got the sister of the lord. And yes, again, similar to Leigh Bardugo's Familiar, like took a bit to take off. I kind of need someone to root for. I need to believe things are going to work out, or that people can fight for, you know. I don't like desperation too much, but if I'm kind of like, okay, they can fight or have some strength or can get through it, then I'll keep going, like I'll stick with you. And it took a bit to get there, but once we got there, like it was so enjoyable. I just love the way Tea Kingfisher writes. Always an air of humor throughout, no matter how intense things go. Kind of that gallows humor, which I really, really enjoy and identify with. So highly recommend. Was this one pretty long? It felt a bit long, 400 pages, so not too long. But yes, I really, really enjoyed Sorceress Comes to Call. Again, any Tea Kingfisher, you can't go wrong with them. There's only a couple of their books that I haven't read because they're too spooky for me. They're too scary, and I can't. When I'm doing my get into bed, sleepy night read, then it's a bit too intense for me. But that was, yeah, definitely 4 stars out of me. Laughed, loved. Yeah, Sorceress Comes to Call was great. And that is everything that I read from January to September. If you've stuck around this long, please like the video, drop a comment if you enjoyed it. If you've read any of these books, I want to know. If you have any recommendations, I definitely want to know, because I feel like my to read pile is like nothing's inspiring me. So if you've read some of the books I've read and know you're going to love this, please put it down there. I would love to know. I will do these reading updates probably once a quarter. I think doing them this long, we've probably got an hour and a half on the clock right now. So in future they won't be as long, but I hope you enjoyed hearing about my reading. I love to read. I'm always reading. So any recommendations you have, thank you so much for joining me. Subscribe if you're not subscribed. If you are brand new and you just like the reading, you can still subscribe because the reading ones will come around. And for every one of my regular viewers, we've got a knitting podcast coming up in a couple of weeks, and then we'll probably do that nice stationery video that I talked about. So yes, thank you so much for joining me. I hope you're well. Drink some water, stretch out your body, have a good time, read some books, and let me know about it in the comments. Thank you so much one more time. Bye.